Good afternoon. Today's topic will be your subject ECE 6207 Principles of Communication System, and topic will be cover classification of radio emissions. Okay, let's start. I'm your OLC from Engineering Department. Okay, next topic. Okay, now we will discuss radio waves, like an electromagnetic waves. Radio waves in a vacuum travel at the speed of light and in the Earth atmosphere at a close but slightly lower speed. Then, since nagtatransmit tayo ng electromagnetic waves sa telecommunication, or it's also known as radio waves in a vacuum that is travel at the speed of light and in the Earth atmosphere at a close, then but slightly lower speed, depende kasi yun sa application kung ang AM or amplitude modulation or yung mga nasa frequency modulation, depende yun dun. Then radio waves are generated by charged particles undergoing acceleration such as time-varying electric current. Okay, ito nga yung definition ng radio waves. It is like electromagnetic waves, then radio waves in a vacuum travel at the speed of light, and for example in Earth atmosphere at a close but slightly lower speed. Then radio wave also are generated by charged particle undergoing acceleration such as time varying electric current. Okay, that is the definition of radio waves. Okay, let's continue. Radio waves also are a type of electromagnetic radiation with wavelength in the electromagnetic spectrum longer than infrared radiation. Okay nga, pag sinabi nating radio waves, ito nga is yung type ng electromagnetic radiation. Since nagtatransmit tayo ng electromagnetic wave, ang kanyang wavelength is nasa range ng electromagnetic spectrum. That is longer than the infrared radiation. Matataas yung mga frequency na ginagamit natin or as operating frequency sa radio waves. Then radio waves had a frequency as high as 300 gigahertz. Yan nga yung mga range ng frequency. Pinakamataas or pwedeng umabot siya ng 300 gigahertz. Then pwede rin naman siya as low as 30 hertz. Yun yung pinakamababa. At 300 gigahertz, ito yung nagko-corresponding sa mga wavelength na 1 millimeter or 1 mm. That is shorter than a grain of rice. Kasi nga ang formula natin sa wavelength, that is lambda over C over F. Yung C is the speed of the light, that is 3 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Then divide natin sa frequency. Kaya usually, the higher the frequency is the shorter the wavelength. Kasi nga, inversely proportional yung ating wavelength at saka yung operating frequency. Then, at 30 Hz naman, ang corresponding wavelength natin is nasa 10,000 kilometers. Okay, that is the formula for wavelength and the relationship between the wavelength and the operating frequency. Okay, next. Okay, didiscuss na natin ito yung mga type ng emission na importante sa communication or telecommunication. Ang first letter natin sa type ng emission is ito yung tinatawag nating type of modulation. For example, A, sa A nagsisimula, ibig sabihin, that is double sideband amplitude modulation. Ito yung mga example, ginagamit sa mga AM broadcast radio. Kapag B naman ang simula ng letter, that is the independent sideband. Pag sinabi natin independent sideband, it has two sideband containing different signals. Then kapag C naman yung first letter sa type of modulation, that is the vestigial sideband. Ito yung ginagamit natin sa mga television. Kung familiar kayo sa mga type ng NTSC, okay, that is vestigial sideband. C ang start ng first letter. Then the next one is the combination of AM and FM or PM. Pag letter D, pag F naman ang characteristic, that is the frequency modulation from the letter itself, F. Ang example nito is sa mga FM broadcast radio. Then kapag G naman is ang type ng modulation is nasa phase modulation. Then kapag H, that is single sideband with full carrier. Ito yung mga example na CHU. Then J is kapag single sideband with a suppressed carrier. Ang application nito, example is sa mga shortwave utility and amateur station. Then kapag K, that is pulse amplitude modulation. Then kapag L naman ang type ng modulation o sa type ng emission sa una letter, that is, ibig sabihin is nasa pulse width modulation or example is yung mga WWBB. Okay, that is the type of modulation for the type of emission, the first letter or characteristic. Then we go for the second type. Okay, continuation also for type of modulation. Kapag letter M naman, madami kasing type yan eh. Mga standard na to. Pag M, pulse modulation. Pag N, that is unmodulated carrier. Kapag P, that is the sequence of pulses without modulation. Then Q, that is sequence of pulse, phase, or frequency modulation within each pulse. Then R is the single sideband with reduced or variable carrier. From the word reduce, R, madali lang tandaan kung mga ECE pag sa word exam. Then B, the combination of pulse modulation methods. Then W, combination of any of the above. And then kapag X naman is, ibig sabihin, that is none of the above. Okay, that is the type of modulation for the first characteristic for a type of emission. Next, we will discuss yung nasa gitna naman o yung type of modulating signal, yung pangalawa na characteristic sa type of emission. Okay, pag sinabi natin 0, that is no modulating signal. Then kapag 1, that is one channel containing digital information, no subcarrier. Then 2, that is one channel containing digital information using a subcarrier. Pag 3, ito usually yung ginagamit na type of emission sa type of modulating signal. That is yung 3, that is the one channel containing analog information. Then kapag 7, ang nasa gitna or yung type ng modulating signal niya, ito is more than one channel containing digital information. Later, we will have an example of type of emission. Then kapag 8, that is more than one channel containing analog information also. Okay? Then kapag 9, that is the combination of analog and digital channels. Then kapag X, ang type of modulating signal, it means none of the above. Okay, next for type of emission. Okay, yung pangatlong letter, it corresponds to type of transmitted information. Ano yung tinatransmit na information? Okay, kapag N, ibig sabihin that is no transmitted information. Usually ginagamit sa mga testing or ng mga broadcasting. Kapag N ang letter ng type of emission. Then kapag A, that is oral telegraphy. Sa mga telegraphy ginagamit. Then intended to be decoded by ear such as yung mga Morse code. Kung familiar kayo sa mga Morse code, yung ginagamit sa mga barko or aeroplano, that is Morse code. Then we have also the B, kapag electronic telegraphy naman siya, that is intended to be decoded by machine. Kung by decoded by ear, that is A, yung mga oral telegraphy. Kapag B, that is electronic telegraphy that is intended to be decoded by machine or radio, teletype, and digital. Okay, kapag facsimile, familiar kayo sa facsimile, yung sa mga fax machine natin, that is ginagamit sa still images, kapag C. Then kapag D, that is the data transmission, ibig sabihin sa telemetry or telecommands, sa mga remote control. Kapag E, okay, ito yung pinaka-common sa mga telephone or telephony, that is voice or music intended to be listened by a human. Then kapag F, yung sa mga TV, ang type ng transmitted information, that is yung mga video at saka television signals. Then kapag W, that is the combination of any of the above, or kapag X naman, that is none of the above. Okay? That is the type of emission. Tatandaan lang natin kapag first, that is yung characteristic niya na first, that is type of modulation. Then the second one, the type of modulating signal. And the third one is the type of transmitted information. Okay, let's give an example of this type of emission. For example, in broadcasting samples, we have A3E. Ibig sabihin, ang una nating characteristic is nasa A, that is the double sideband amplitude modulation. Ginagamit sa AM broadcast radio. Then kapag 3 naman, ang kanyang pangalawang characteristic, that is the type of modulating signal, then ang ginagamit naman is one channel containing analog information. Okay? Then sa pag-E naman, yung panghuli, or yung type of transmitted information, kapag E, ibig sabihin sa telephony yung application niya. That is voice or music intended to be listened to by a human. Okay? Kaya ang tinawag natin A3E, that is the ordinary amplitude modulation used for a low frequency and medium frequency AM broadcasting. Okay? That is the A3E or A3EG, yung lumang code or emission. Kapag F8E naman, that is, ibig sabihin, ang kanyang unang characteristic is F. Ang type ng modulation niya is nasa frequency modulation. Madali lang tandaan kasi doon din naman nagsisimula, FM broadcast radio, F. Then 8, usually kapag 8 naman, that is more than one channel containing analog information. Then yung pinakahuli niya, E, that is yung telephony, voice or music intended to be listened to by a human. Okay, kaya ang F8E, that is used for FM broadcasting for radio transmission on VHF and the audio component of analog television transmission. Then kapag C3F naman, that is usually, ginagamit natin is, first type niya is C, that is a vestigial sideband, ginagamit sa NTSC. Okay, then the 3, that is yung kanyang pangalawa, type of modulating signal, that is the one channel containing analog information. Then next, yung pinakahuli, that is F. Pag sinabi natin F, that is the type of transmitted information, that is the F, is called video or television chat signals. Kaya ang usually, kapag si 3F, that is the analog used for PAL, SECAM, tsaka yung mga NTSC sa mga television video signal. That is formally also known as the type A5C. Okay, yung mga lumang emission na type. Okay, next for broadcasting samples. Okay, now we will discuss the two-way radio in broadcasting naman. Ito yung A3E. Ginagamit natin sa AM speech communication used for aeronautical communication. Then F3E naman is FM naman siya kasi yung simula niya is F. Let's make this emission FM speech communication that is often used for marine radio and many others VHF communications. Then kapag J3E, that is usually SSB, that is single sideband speech communication used on high frequency bands katulad ng mga marine, aeronautical, and amateurs users. Okay, that is a two-way radio in broadcasting. Next. Okay, now we will discuss the low-speed data broadcasting. Ito naman yung mga ginagamit sa low-speed data broadcasting. Katulad ng N0N. Okay, pag sinabi nating N, that is yung sa first niya, type ng modulation, that is unmodulated carrier. Okay, then 0 naman yung pangalawa, ibig sabihin no modulating signal. Then last naman is no transmitted information. Bakit natin nagkakameron tayo ng N0N? Okay, ang application ng N0N is a continuous unmodulated carrier that is formally common for radio direction finding. Okay, that is RDF, ginagamit sa RDF. That is radio direction finding. Usually, ginagamit ito sa mga marine tsaka aeronautical navigation. Ibig sabihin, nagna-navigate sila or meron siyang hinahanap na direction. Usually, that is used for RDF in marine. Kaya yung N0N yan. Continuous unmodulated carrier, then these are commonly for radio direction finding. Okay, ano naman yung A1A? Ang A1A is signaling by keying the carrier directly, also known as the CW or a continuous wave, or on-off keying 00OOK. Then that is used for amateur radio. Okay, usually yung A1A that is ginagamit sa continuous wave or sa mga amateur radio. Okay, that is yung mga hindi masyadong malayuan na broadcasting. Kumbaga yung mga lumang broadcasting lang siya. Then it also often necessary para sa mga Morse code. Okay, yung mga ginagamit sa Morse code or sa mga emergency purposes or pwede rin naman sa mga search and rescue. Okay, next. Okay, ano naman yung A2A? Pag sinabi natin A2A na type ng emission, this one is used in signaling by transmitting a modulated tone with a carrier so that it can easily be heard using an ordinary AM receiver. Then it was formerly widely used for station identification of non-directional beacons. Okay, usually pag sinabi natin A2A, ginagamit natin itong mga signaling ito sa mga transmitting na modulated tone with a carrier. Then it can be easily heard by using an ordinary AM receiver. Okay, tinatawag natin din ito sa use for station identification. Okay, para malaman natin kung ang isang station ba or isang AM is anong klase yung kanyang frequency na ginagamit, then anong kung sino yung may-ari, then ano yung identification nito. Usually used for non-directional beacons. Usually, but not exclusively for Morse code, ginagamit din sa Morse code. Pwede rin siyang gamitin sa Morse code. Then, example of modulated continuous wave also. Okay, ano naman yung F1B? Ang F1B that is used for frequency shift keying or ginagamit natin sa FSK that is used for telegraphy such as yung mga RTTY. Then yung FIC naman is used for high frequency radio packs. Yung mga matataas na frequency ng radio packs, that is FIC.